Hey everybody. So I'm Caleb Arthur. I'm the founder and CEO at Sun Solar. Obviously, we do a lot of things at Sun Solar, but one of the things people continually ask me about is how did I start my business? And coming up in May, we will be in business 11 years, and so um, it takes me back quite a bit thinking about how I started my business, what I did to really get it going. And a lot of people call it bootstrapping because I bootstrapped Sun Solar into existence 11 years ago. Obviously, my family was very supportive in getting the business going, and I think it's important to talk about what people have to do to make a business successful. If you think about Sun Solar now, we're a business with over 300 employees, 8,000 customers, and we're throughout the entire Midwest. And I think using these platforms, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all these different platforms, sharing what some of the core things that I started doing 11 years ago is very important. But there's things that I learned through my childhood growing up in a family-owned business. I grew up in a family-owned business that was just a few family members. My grandfather and my father being the core people of that business, and growing up and learning about that customers are always number one, and that's a core thing that we still focus on to this day. And going from last year of having literally 115 employees to now having 300 12 months later, that's sometimes something that we struggle with internally, is how to keep our focus on the customer versus focused on other things. And so that's something that we talk about a lot in our meetings. But that's something that a lot of companies will lose focus on is, you call a company and it's like hit one for sales, two for service, and then you go through these continuous things. Jock, you know what I'm talking about, man. It's like you call these companies and it's just you're on hold for hours on end, right? And that's the thing that I absolutely just that I do not like is somebody calling Sun Solar and not getting a live person. And while we can't guarantee that all the time, that's my goal, is to always have somebody be able to answer with a live person. And so it doesn't just have to be about like how to build a solar business. It can be about how to just build a good business, no matter what you're doing in life. And a lot of the things that I'm going to be able to teach people is just how I built my business from doing a few $100,000 in revenue on how to get to $100 million in revenue, because that's really the trajectory that we're at. And so a lot of these things I had to learn over the last 11 years really the hard way. And I had some great mentors over the years. And, we'll be able to have some of those mentors come on as guests over the next, probably few months to the next year. And that's very exciting. But some of the things that I was going to hit on today are just about when I originally started, the things that I had to do. Being 24 years old, people didn't really take me that very serious when I started. But the people that did take me serious, I surrounded myself with those people. And one of the first things that I did was I really focused on how to provide a fanatical customer experience for every customer that did invest with me. And I'll never forget some of my very first customers. I obviously sold those customers. I installed those customers. I provided excellent customer service, excellent follow through, any referrals that they gave me. And it was just one of those things where it was the white glove experience every step of the way. And as you grow, the challenge becomes, how do you continue to provide that white glove experience? And that's hard, because when you start hiring and you can start getting more employees, now that we have 300 employees, how do you hire and train employees that continue that legacy? And that can get lost, right? And so when we have new hires come on, I try to be in the new hire orientation classes with our new hires. I try to go out in the field as often as I can, and go out to installs. And so it's one of those things, as the CEO, I could easily go out and just spend all of my time building relationships outside of the company. But really, at the end of the day, it's how do I focus on building relationships inside of the company with the employees that are going to be continuing on this legacy and this tradition of what I want to have as a fanatical customer experience. And so, when I got started, it was literally just me and my family members and some friends starting this company. And I had one goal at that time, and that was to sell and install one solar system a month. And now we do, easily 100 a month. And so you think about how to how to build that 100 times larger than just doing one a month. And I'll never forget, I was in law enforcement at the time, and then I'd gotten into insurance, doing regular type of insurance sales. And while that was fulfilling, it wasn't fulfilling enough for me because I wasn't owning and controlling my own destiny, running my own business. And I'll never forget, I created, we're called Sun Solar now because we're obviously in the Midwest. At the time, I created Missouri Sun Solar, and it was on my wife's birthday, in May, 11 years ago. And I got on the state's website, and in about, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes, I created the LLC. And I'd never created an LLC before. Part of being an entrepreneur is just being able to figure things out. And so getting online, Google searching how to create an LLC in the state of Missouri, creating that, paying the filing fee, getting the certificate, printing it off, walking in there on her birthday and being like, hey, you always said that I should figure out how to own my own business. I think getting in the solar, putting solar on my own house, obviously being in law enforcement, I wanted to have a more sustainable, freedom style lifestyle. We had built a straw bale house. So for those of you who don't know what a straw bale house is, you can Google it, look it up. Maybe we'll be able to post some photos in our post production where we'll show you actual pictures of my straw bale house for those of you who haven't seen it before. But we have 10 acres outside of Houston, Missouri, where I was born and raised. Houston, Missouri is a very small rural community. I grew up on a cattle farm there. Straw bale house is a very energy efficient way to build a home. You don't need a lot of technical skill to build. And what we ended up doing was this straw bale house ended up having just straw bales. They are the straw bales you see in a field, and you stack them up on your exterior walls. And then we wrapped it with chicken wire, and then we sprayed it with stucco, and that creates almost like a concrete type wall. And the walls are literally like 18 to 20 inches thick, and you could almost heat the entire house with like a candle, right? So we literally had like a wood stove and like a mini split HVAC system in our house, and it was able to heat and cool our entire 2,600 square foot house. So right before I started my solar company, we'd built this house. Me and my family and friends built this house. We used a contractor to help set the trusses and do some finish work. And you think about houses back then, it would probably cost between $80 and $100 per square foot to build this house. And we built this entire thing for $37 a square foot. And that included when we purchased the solar panels. Nobody would install the solar panels for me in this rural area. There really wasn't any solar companies. And so I had started watching some YouTube videos. I'd bought a book, and me and my father had built the entire solar array out on the ground, and we'd concreted the post, and we welded it up, installed everything ourselves, and we flipped the switch. My dad has a much better version. We probably need to get my dad in here and tell the story on one of these, and it's very it's very funny story to hear him tell it. But he talks about taking a broom handle and flipping the breaker on because we were anticipating that we might blow something up when we turned the solar system on. So it's a very funny story to hear from my dad. But obviously, I am, a huge part of my success and grit and determination about who I am. Came from being around my grandfather and my father growing up, and just seeing how their work ethic carried over into me, and just seeing how they handled everyday life. And so, there's a big benefit of that. But I think that even if people, no matter what their circumstances on how they're raised, they can obviously learn from other people, and they can take videos, and they can take real life scenarios of other people, and they can, listen to stories like this, and they can take segments of stories like this, and they can implement those. They can implement those things in their own lives, right? Because I've obviously learned a lot of bad habits over my life, and I've been able to work through a lot of those things as well, right? And so, to get back, I'd built this straw bale house. installed my own solar panels. I knew nothing about solar up until that point, but I knew I didn't want to have utility bills. So I built this 2,600 square foot house. It's 6 bedroom, 3 bath on 10 acres, and so I'm really excited about having my first house ever. And I have a very small mortgage payment. All in, we're like $115,000 or so for this house. And I'll never forget. I was in a pretty bad meth lab explosion accident when I was in law enforcement, and I spent about 9 months recovering. Some of it physical, most of it psychological type issues that I was having. Just a lot of PTSD and issues from my years, my few years in law enforcement, and then from this accident. And at the time, Rachel, my wife, she was encouraging me to find something safer to do. At that time, she was pregnant with our first child, and then obviously she'd given birth. And I remember having our 3-month-old son when I created Sun Solar, Missouri Sun Solar at the time, and I had a lot of drive and determination to create a different reality for our family. And that really just flipped the switch internally for me, that I wanted a different outcome for my family, but for other people as well. I wanted to provide just a different lifestyle for friends and family and different people that I knew. And so I'll never forget, I sold my first job, and I told the customer how much down payment I was going to need to be able to order their equipment. And they didn't feel comfortable giving me that much money. And so I was literally like exactly $13,000 short. And so I thought, well, I don't know where I'm going to come up with $13,000. And so I went to my grandparents and I said, I'm $13,000 short. Can I have a temporary loan from you all until the customers get done getting installed, and then they're going to pay me the rest of the money? And so my grandma heard me pitch the business story to them of what I was doing, and immediately she was like in agreement, supported me. And so, if it wasn't for that, who knows if how far my business would have taken off. And so, you know, right time, right place, right support, being able to have things like that are definitely key, right? So my grandma loaned me the money, got that first customer installed. My I was a very conservative person. I never had really taken on debt. I always had, obviously I've taken on debt now to be able to grow the business, lines of credit, things like that, because we've grown just so fast, so quickly. But back then, I always saved up and bought everything with cash. That's just how my family lived, how my grandparents lived. We really didn't believe in having debt for running businesses or for running our lives. And so I would save up and always have cash for everything. And, and so it was very interesting on how to try to grow my business on just a cash flow basis. And that really kept me from growing for a long time. And so, trying to hire employees, trying to teach employees how to grow the business, that was very scary for me at first, especially growing up in a family-owned business that didn't have a lot of employees, trying to trust people to do a job as well as you would want it done. That's kind of letting go of that vine, trusting other people to do a job like you'd want it done. All those things can be very, very terrifying at first. And I'll never forget, our business first took off in St. Louis. I'm living in Houston. It's literally a 3-hour drive. I was driving almost 5,000, at least 5,000 miles a month, because my wife and son we want to keep our family in the Straw Bale house, and I didn't want to spend extra money on renting a place up in St. Louis. And my uncle lived in St. Louis, who was our structural engineer for the company. He retired from his job, and he was my dad's older brother, and he helped out a lot with the company and helped out a lot with everything in my life, still helps out a lot. And so, you've got those core people. My life coach, she calls them like your kind of like your cabinet, like the president has like a cabinet of people that they can count on. Governors have like a cabinet of people they can count on. You've got to find those people in your life that you can count on, that are like kind of your cabinet of your advisors, right? And so while my cabinet of people have kind of changed over time, I've kind of always had those core people that are always going to be there for me, right? I've had, my mom and dad, I've had my wife, I've had my uncle Bill, And so, you just have those different cabinet people. And actually my life coach, Jill, over the last 5 years has become one of those cabinet people that I've just been able to count on. My business has flourished. My personal life has flourished. Being able to have this life coach, business coach, and it's one of those things like they always say like you don't know what you don't know, right? But once you start learning these things and you're able to start putting these tools in your tool belt and you start learning how to grow. I used to think that everything that I did in the business world at Sun Solar was totally disconnected from how I live my personal life. And what I've learned over the last probably 4 or 5 years is that how I handle and live in my personal life and how I show up in my personal life is almost an exact replica of how I show up in my business life. And for the last, up until last year, we'd grown the business in 2015 and hit amazing numbers in 2015 for our revenue and just grew like crazy and hit 100 employees. And then we were stuck at 100 employees for 4 years. And I was angry at everybody, including myself, and just taking it out on everybody around me, and just thought that I was the biggest failure in the world. Couldn't figure out why the business wouldn't grow. And after having all this success in the world, and getting to the pinnacle of where I thought I could maybe go. And so I thought, okay, I'm not ever going to grow. I'm not smart enough, intelligent enough to figure out how to grow the business anymore. And I just had kind of just given up on being able to grow the company anymore. And finally, a switch had flipped, and on internally on that, I've got to be more loving, more gracious, more appreciative about what I have, everything in my life, and on the personal side and the business side. And literally, there was not really any market change for our industry, for what we do in our industry. There was really no market change. Our equipment costs hadn't went down. There was nothing. I actually had key employees that had left, and I was left running the sales team. I had my sales director had left. The sales director had left. The person over the sales director had left. My number two had left. And I looked at the sales managers literally in July of the not 2022 but 2021, and I looked at my three sales managers and I said, who's going to be the sales director? And they said, sales directors don't really survive around here long term, so how about you be the sales director? And I said, I'm the CEO. I don't play sales director here. And so they said, well, we don't want to be the sales director. We like being sales managers. And they were all very tenured, here 5 years at that point, each one of them. And so I said, okay, well, I'll be the sales director. And we went from, selling what we had been selling, and we tripled our sales volume in less than 4 months with the teams that we had. And we just kept building, we kept growing, and we worked as a team, and we communicated, and we just went back to basics, went back to our roots, and we just rebuilt everything from the ground up. And it felt so good to get back involved and to be able to just be on that level again and to learn my business again. And so, that was literally just a year and a half ago. And I've reconnected with myself. I've started regrounding with the business, regrounding with our customers, really getting revitalized. Obviously, there's a lot of pieces to clean up in the business to get it back to where it was when I first started, on like how I want the business to run, the things I want it. And obviously, being in business 11 years, we've been doing a lot of the things that are right. 80% of our competitors have either went out of business or been bought out and become these big conglomerates, with these publicly traded solar companies and different stuff. But, here we are in the Midwest. We're still growing. We're still excited. Obviously, we really want to have a good culture of here internally, so that people want to come work for us. We have very low unemployment, so a lot of times people are leaving other careers to come work for us, and so we're very cognizant that people are interviewing us more so than maybe us interviewing them, and you have to keep that in mind whenever you're looking for employees to grow your business. How to be competitive in this work environment, but just the core of what Sun Solar was when it started and why I wanted to start it. And, I do not so much now because I got so burnt out. A lot of people might not understand this, and even doing what I'm doing right now, gives me some level of anxiety. I used to love being in front of the camera, and we grew our, I grew our Facebook page originally to over 40,000 followers, and we generated so much revenue just off of Facebook. It was before you could even have paid advertising. I mean, this was, 9 years ago. We grew so much of our business just off Facebook, just creating videos and content. It was just, you get addicted to social media, right? And at one point I was just on my phone all the time and felt like I didn't see my family for years. And you get kind of burnt out, but doing public speaking was fun and engaging and telling all these stories and showing people how I'd created this sustainable off-grid lifestyle and having total freedom kind of from the government as much as possible. And it was kind of that wave before people really started embracing wanting to like live off the grid and doing all those things. And people weren't really, I don't know, that excited about it, or that in tune with it. And so my content really wasn't super exciting about that lifestyle, but just about solar and saving money in general. And so, obviously, thankfully, people see that there's a way to save money by going solar, or just that living off the grid lifestyle has become so popular. And so, obviously I was able to get in the industry at the right time because I've met these very intelligent people that are so much more intelligent about the technology, of energy than me, that have been in the solar industry for 25 years, but they just didn't hit it big. They were like in it way too early. They were very early adopters, and they were talking about how 25 years ago they would install a solar system for $150,000 for these homeowners, but they'd only get a few clients a year. And we install solar systems for, $25,000 now, $30,000 now. Not saying people won't spend 90 grand on a system, but they're installing multiple battery packs to live off grid. They're installing the Tesla battery packs, the Tesla Powerwall. Sorry, need to make sure I say it correctly. They're installing massive solar arrays. They're on 10,000 square foot homes, and it's because they have a lot of energy needs, right? But whenever I installed my system on my straw bale house, I think I spent $15,000, and I put it on my home mortgage, and so it increased my home mortgage payment by $45 a month, and I offset a $65 a month utility bill. So I had day one savings, and it's about making smart money decisions like that. And I did it. I did it out of the idea of I wanted to have that peace of mind that when the grid failed and when it shut off, which it shuts off all the time where I live, maybe not for weeks at a time, but it would shut off for hours at a time. I wanted the peace of mind that if I was not home and I was in St. Louis, that I had my family protected at home, and I didn't have to worry about the fridge and the deep freeze and the lights and the internet and the heat and the air and everything working right. And so just things like that. So it was one of those things. So like what, 7 minutes left on the thing before you run out. So it's one of those things that always trying to be learning new things, always be open to learning new things. Never think that you're never think that you are the smartest person walking around. Just be coachable. That's one of the things that I've always been very in tune with, wanting to learn new things, wanting to challenge myself. The people that move up the fastest in the company that I really enjoy spending my time with are people that are very coachable. They don't have to be super knowledgeable. I'd say 90 to 95% of the people that we hire have no knowledge about our industry. We just need somebody that has a good attitude, is coachable, and wants to fit in our culture, and we will teach them the rest, because there's not a lot of people that come out of the solar industry into our company because it's just such a newer industry. It's not like an established industry. It's kind of the Wild West when you think about it. You can have sales experience and come into our company, and that's great if you have sales experience and you want to stay in sales, or if you have construction experience and you want to be an installer, that's great. Like if you have some background, but you're still got to be cross trained in the what we're doing, right? But and that's what helped me, right? Growing up in a family owned business in the construction trades, I was able to take a lot of that hands on construction knowledge with kind of the sales background knowledge that I had growing up, with just understanding customers and the mindset and how to just kind of that all in one, how to run a business, watching my dad and my grandfather and my grandmother run a family owned business all those years, and then take that and how to figure out how to like take that to the next level. Now, would I have ever thought in my wildest dreams that I would have, 300 employees and we need to hire like another 250 employees this year to keep up with demand? No, I would have never really thought that, but I also, when I started my company, I thought I'm going to keep growing this thing, and no matter what anybody tells me that I can't, I'm not going to believe it, right? Because we all get these ideas in our heads from other people or ourselves that we can't do it. Like somebody tells me I can't do it or it's impossible. I was not an expert by any means. I'll end with this story. I was one of the first big conferences I went to for the solar industry was actually one of our big trade association conferences, and it was up in St. Louis. And we went up, and I was so just overwhelmed and excited that I could even go to a trade conference and learn from all the experts, right? And there was this huge heavy hitter that owned this huge solar company. He had at least 100 employees, and I had like 3 or 4. And he said, "I'll take you around, and I'll take you downtown St. Louis, and I'll show you this install that we just completed." And it was this real fancy, nice install, and I was just so overwhelmed that he was showing me. I go, "Why are you showing me all this, man? Like, this is insider baseball. You're telling me what it cost. You're telling me who your customers are. Like, this is crazy." I was like, "Why are you telling me all this?" He goes, "Listen, dude, you're a startup. I don't even see you as a competitor. You don't scare me." Like, and he was just obviously super derogatory towards me, right? And I just kind of was like taken back that he talked to me that way, but I just kind of thought, okay, I'll never forget that. Just kind of locked it away. I stayed super nice to him, and I just kind of thought, I'll show you. And within 3 years, that guy was out of our market. He since is sold, his company shrank down after that. He lost like half his employees, left the market, lost half his employees, sold off his company, and now he's an employee at another solar company. And I just thought, that guy was kind of a jerk. He wasn't very humble. He probably treated his employees the same way that he treated me that day. And I just, I never wanted to really, be that kind of person whenever I became successful. But I kind of wanted to show him and show everybody else that I had what it took to grow my business. And so, definitely out of time, got to move on, but stay tuned, and we'll keep doing more of these and explaining more about the business. So thanks, everybody.